Hey, this is Robert Phoenix with Clean Water Fredericksburg, and um, I'm really happy to have Sam Brannon with us today. This is going to be the first interview we're doing in a series of interviews with people who've been involved in the fight to get fluoride out of the water here in Texas and in other places as well. Sam has been a real inspiration for us with our group. He was one of the organizers of Fluoride Free San Marcos. And after 2 years of diligence and hard work and teamwork, they were able to get the fluoride, industrial fluoride, out of San Marcos's water supply. And we're grateful for Sam's work. And he's been, really generous with his time and working with us and helping us get our program together here in Fredericksburg. Sam, first of all, thanks for your work and thanks for joining us here today.
Oh, I am happy that you guys are doing what you're doing. When I got the phone call, when you guys first called, I got excited because I love this issue and I love your openness to how to approach it. And the people I've met are excited and capable. So, I mean, you guys have a lot going for you. Easy for me to want to be part of that.
Well, we're happy to have you as a part of our team too. So one of the things that, that I wanted to ask you is what motivated you to get involved to get the fluoride out of the water in San Marcos?
Yeah, it was, I guess, early 2013, a friend of mine came and said, "Hey, what do you know about fluoride?" And I said, "Well, really not that much." I said, "When I was young, I was taught it was good for us. I know other people think it's bad for us. I've never looked at it." And she stuck a stack of papers in my hand. She said, "Read this. I need to know what you think about it." So I went home and I read it. And I called her back the next day. And I said, "Well, if what you handed me in that paper is true, then we have a problem on our hands and we need to look at it." So we had recently started a local politics organization that really just handled city and county stuff and school district stuff. And this is a good issue to bring in. And so we took it before a committee and we did all the research and, created the story ourselves, convinced ourselves that it was worth doing. We took it to the larger group, and it took a couple of months to get the entire group's buy-in. But I think the day that organization decided to get behind it, we had a unanimous vote of like 47-0 that we wanted to go out and fix this problem. So I kind of got, I call it, I got tricked into it. But once I figured out what was going on, I couldn't let it go. I mean, I love this issue. All of the science, 90% of the science, 95% of the science is in our side.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about that, because you got pretty well versed with sort of the background of fluoride and the science, and why it's actually very important for us to get this out of our water.
Yeah, what I found out, and again, this is like doing the hours of research beyond the first couple of hours of research, but I went back to the original studies on which they based the Grand Rapids experiment on. And they had Grand Rapids, and I forget the name of the next town over, but one of them they were going to fluoridate, one of them was going to be the control. And I found out through reading, and this is all factual, it's all documented if you go look for it, but the first fluoride that they brought in to Grand Rapids was actually from a nuclear facility out in Nevada. It's also a byproduct of nuclear waste. And so for their experiment, they brought in probably the worst thing to put in a water supply and see what happens. And what I found out after that, looking into that, is all the science, the quote unquote science they presented was all just made up. There was no difference between the two towns. So that was 1940s. And in the last, I guess we're, close to 60 years on. Is that right? 80 years on, whatever it is. The science hadn't got any better. There has never been a single, they call it a randomized controlled trial. There's never been a single randomized controlled trial for the efficacy and for the safety of the product they put in our water, which is, to me, unfathomable. Yeah, the product they put in the water is not what the dentist use on children's teeth.
Right, it's not the same stuff.
No, that's sodium fluoride, and that's in the toothpaste and, any application. They tell you don't swallow that.
That's
what
right.
They're giving us is that hydrofluorosilicic acid that comes from the phosphate fertilizer manufacturing. It's a hazardous waste. The EPA calls it a hazardous waste. They don't allow them to dump it into landfills, rivers, lakes, or oceans. But somehow it's going into our water supply. And humans make a pretty good filter for it. Our body filters out about half of the fluoride, and it sits in our systems and does terrible things to, brain, to thyroid, to kidney, to liver, you name it, pretty much any system. There's not a single biological requirement in our bodies for fluoride. I mean, it makes no sense. So the beautiful part about it is it becomes so obvious as you're going down this path and you teach yourself more, and even the conversations that we have with petition signers, 20, 30 seconds into it, they get it. They know it doesn't belong in our water.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also naturally occurring fluoride in the water supply, which is, again, a bit of a different compound. Here in Fredericksburg, we have 3 parts per million, and I guess the FDA standard is 7 parts per million. So we're only, naturally 4 points per million off of the standard. It really makes, very little sense to, add this industrial strength fluoride into our water. One of the things that you and I have talked about is that there are all these reasons why we shouldn't have the fluoride in the water, but you also found out that there's actually no compelling reason as to why it's in the water, right?
Yeah, actually, we haven't found it. There have been no studies, that demonstrate that it does what they say it'll do, much less do it safely. So, their argument is for 3, I think, to 8-year-old children, it might be 10, I forget, but 3 to 8-year-old children are supposed to do something for the teeth. They medicate an entire population to reach, that 5 or 7% of the population that it might actually apply to. So it just, from the standpoint that strikes most people, and me in particular, but most people, where even if they set all the science to the side, and you say, well, there's science for, science against, we'll argue that, but if we just set it all to the side, the theory is that you and I should be able to decide, be the final decision on what goes in our body or what doesn't. And so any form, there are EPA scientists that have said before that any form of mass medication is just insane. I mean, it's like the worst thing you could possibly do, because everybody has different needs. Everybody's body is different. They have different danger zones, and they have different, things that help them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on a great point, is that choices are being made for us at a high level that we're not being allowed to make for ourselves. And, clearly choice is a pretty hot topic in political discussion. And here's another area where it's coming up, and, another area where people can take back that power and actually have the power of choice in their lives.
Absolutely. We call it informed consent. If you're going to do something to me, I should be able to say yes or no, but I should also be fully informed on it. And, this program has nothing to do with informed consent. It's always implemented, sort of secretly and quietly, and then we find out we're fluoridated, and what do? How do you fight City Hall? Well, in San Marcos, we were able to do it. And basically, the answer that we took is we just take it out of the hands of City Hall. We no longer go plead to our city council members and to our water department, to the city manager. We have the ability in the state of Texas to do something really cool, and that's called a city charter amendment petition. And that means the voters can actually sign the petition to get the issue on the ballot, and then we go vote on it. And after we vote it out, like we did in San Marcos, after we vote it out, they can't re-implement it without going back to the voters.
Right.
That's a very powerful tool. If you want to stop your local government from doing things it shouldn't be doing, city charter amendment's the way to go. And I'm so glad you guys adopted that as your strategy.
Yeah, you and I talked a little bit about this process, and you went through something similar. Although you guys were like way down the line with it. You created all these binders with all this information, and you were delivering them to the city council, and you essentially found out that they probably didn't even crack open any of those binders, and that's what got you guys to take the next step, right?
Yeah, it took us about 1.5 years to figure out we weren't going to make any progress at the city. We thought our case was so strong, and it really is, but we thought it was so strong that there's a single natural conclusion, obvious conclusion. They couldn't bridge that gap, and you're right, we did give them 3-inch, 4-inch thick binders with everything, table of contents, and separated and easy to read, and cover letter, and told them how to use this. And when we took them back 3 months later, I didn't see a dog-eared page in there. I don't think anybody even opened it. So it took us a while because, you know, I'm used to kind of going straight at an issue. And this time I figured out straight out the issue was straight to the voters, not to the politicians.
Right. And, you know, that's part of a process. And that process is it can be a grinding process, one that, you know, will take a lot of patience, but also a really empowering one too. And I know that you guys in San Marcos got to experience some of that empowerment on a personal level, on a group level. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, this is the kind of thing that gives me energy on a project like this. We, you know, started off a relatively small group, and once we figured out the charter amendment thing was the way to go. I mean, we had a lot of people participating in the political process, going down and talking to city council, but saying words are important, don't get me wrong. But when you get people actually to volunteer their time to, I call them radicals. A radical is anybody who's willing to do anything in this world, right? And so if you can get somebody to get out and take that first step and even sign a petition is a big step. We had people that were gathering the petitions. We had people playing support roles. And it was a really nice thing to say. I made a lot of, you know, I made a lot of friends when we started having meetings. When we got a little further down the line, you know, we would have a meeting and hope 10 or 15 people show up and be blown away with 25 and everybody wanted to contribute. And then to go through this process and to get on the ballot, like, you know, we've never, in City San Marcos, we've never had a citizen-led charter amendment. And we put that on the ballot, and then we won with 61%. We had a lot of people that had never taken part in any sort of local advocacy, policy advocacy, and this was their first time, and we got to bag a win. And I still stay in touch with these people. When we have things to go do now, most of them are willing to go do it, you know? So, yeah, when you look at how much sometimes get a little, feel like we're separated from the governmental process, and they try really hard to make that the case. Yeah. And this is one that you realize that we can actually change things. And then once we did the first one, we came up with a list of a whole other things that, you know, are on our list to go get a little bit later down the road. Yeah, so it's a beautiful thing.
Right. You know, you know, it's become almost a cliche buzzword or phrase, you know, making America great again. But, you know, this is where it really has some traction. You know, that's where that saying or that phrase, where the rubber really hits the road, and people can be invested in a process at a local level where they feel like they can really contribute. And, you know, again, you know, off camera, you shared something with me that I thought was really brilliant, which was you weren't asking your city government to do more, you're asking them to actually do less. And can you talk about that a little bit and how that worked out as a concept for you guys and kind of a strategy?
Yeah, you know, when you look at, I guess, all levels of government, it's every bit as true at the local level as we think it is at the federal level. There are so many things that, you know, we can call them well-intentioned, we can call them just how policy winds up. The governments do things that we feel harm us. And sometimes we feel a little bit powerless in that. I think that this is a great tool. You know, we can try to make the government go do more things, but they're not really that good at it. So I like, you know, let's look at where they're hurting us. Let's look at where we can stop some behaviors that, you know, aren't just affecting me, but are affecting a lot of people. And this is a great issue, again, like so many of them are, where I call them 80% issues, where you talk to 75 or 80% of the people in common terms, and everybody tends to agree that's something worth doing. Well, those are the things that don't normally get addressed, right? We love the issues that split people. And this is an issue that on all sides of the political spectrum from every corner, people understand because it's individual decisions, it's our health.
Right. And water is such a primary element, you know, that it connects everybody, right?
Primary is the word.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the aftermath or what's taken place in San Marcos. You know, any difference in the quality of the water, quality of lives, anything that you can kind of put your finger on with any of that?
Well, it did raise a lot of awareness to how the city operates. So, you know, I put a big emphasis on that. And even people that I don't agree with on any other political issue in the world, it's changed the way they view their role in local government. We really do have a lot more power. And, you know, for the people that were involved in this campaign, when we go in and speak to city council now and we go to our county commissioners, they know who we are and they listen a little bit more intently. I can honestly tell you, I don't get my way very often from them. But they spend more time devising excuses now for what they don't do because they know that we've figured out a way to impact the system, and they know we're serious about it and we have the capabilities. In San Marcos, when we handed in our petition, they're required by state law to do certain things after we hand it in. One, validate that we have the correct number, make sure we didn't falsify all the signatures, really basic stuff. But they're required by law to put it on the ballot, and they didn't want to do it. So when our attorney sent them the demand letter, the next day they filed a 17-page lawsuit on us. So again, when you talk about what that does to the community, it was really a shocking point, you know,
right.
For the community. And the big headline in the local paper, you know, kind of made a mockery out of what we were doing. And we had to live with it. But, you know, very shortly afterward, we get through our court case, we win, and everybody realized, oh, they were right all along. Well, I mean, that changes a lot of the dynamics in the community. So, you know, everything that comes out of this is going to be a positive for Fredericksburg. The work Clean Fred is doing is huge.
Well, thanks, Sam. We appreciate that. I just wanted to squeeze out one more story from you. And that was when you had your debate with the dentist and how that really seemed to be a pretty pivotal moment in a lot of ways. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, it absolutely was. We got the local League of Women Voters to put this on their October 2015 forum. And they said, well, we'll have you in, but we're going to have to get somebody on the other side. And I said, yeah, please do. The people want to hear this. So they brought in a dentist and, you know, a guy I came to know. And, you know, it's really beyond me how a medical professional can get up on stage and talk about adding neurotoxins to the water and calling it a good thing. But he did. And he gave it a decent shot. And basically he was reading straight off of the CDC, the things that they prepared for dentists to go out and talk to communities. But the audience came really interested in this because we'd done a good job up front. And there were probably 200 people in the audience. And, you know, I'm a finance major. You get up on stage with a dentist to talk about teeth, you feel a little bit out of your element. But we got the story out. And there were informed people in the audience that went up and asked questions of both of us. And by the time it was over, I mean, you could just feel the wave change in that room, that for the people that won on our side, we essentially neutralized most of them. And for the ones that were sort of in the middle, they came our way.
Right.
And it was a beautiful thing to watch. And I'm so grateful for, you know, having drawn the straw to be the guy to get on stage, although it was uncomfortable. It had to be done, and it showed really well. I think it showed our argument against the establishment argument that this is good for you, and people made the right decision.
Yeah, it seems like that dentist had a serious case of truth decay. What do you think?
You know, it was funny when this was getting going. They started to try to line up other health professionals to speak. The city did on their behalf, and one of them was a what do you call a child doctor? I don't have children. I'm sorry. Pediatrician. Thank you.
Yeah.
A pediatrician came out and was quoted in the paper. I sent her an email and I said, you really want to think twice before you tell your customers it's okay to put neurotoxins in their water. And, you know, she thought about it and she disappeared from the conversation. My goal wasn't to intimidate her, but I mean, these are real positions that real people take in the community. I'm a person, and, you know, when you stand up in the community and do something like this, you're going to get a little bit of flack for it. The people on the other side have to be accountable for their stances as well.
Right.
So,
right.
You know, I think it's all fair, and you know, we did it in a very legitimate fashion. But yeah, stand up and state your position. You know, and that's why, like I said, anybody wants to do this project, I'm game to help.
So, kind of the last piece I wanted to ask you about here. What would you like to share with the people of Fredericksburg about not really your process and because we've explored that, but just about fluoride and water in general?
Yeah, just realize that, you know, we've been given a narrative over the years that really isn't true, and they couldn't prove it's true, and they don't want to even test it to the point that they would say it's true or not true because they don't believe it's going to work out for them. So, you know, if you don't completely buy the issue, I highly encourage you to spend some time doing some reading. I know you guys will be updating your Facebook page with a lot of stuff from the Fluoride Action Network. It's a great resource. Just be open-minded on this and have an appreciation that, you know, there's looks like a dozen and a half going on 24 people out there that are working real hard to give your community clean water. Hear them out, you know, and take part. I mean, if you're into the issue, take part and help, because it's a great thing to be a part of when you bring it. So yeah, just keep an open mind and support the cause. And you know, there's no downside. There's absolutely no downside to taking this out of the water.
Sam Brannon, Fluoride Free San Marcos, thanks for your time. We really appreciate you and your work, and you're helping us get the ball rolling here in Fredericksburg. Thanks again.
Thank you. God bless, and let's get it done.